Hello, it's me again with another podcast episode. Happy days. Look at that flag, not moving. Big trees over the road, not a whisper, not a breath of breeze. Oh, hang on, the flag did something then. It moved about a centimetre, I think. 4 degrees centigrade this morning. What's that in Fahrenheit? I haven't looked it up. I'll do that in a minute. 96% humidity, 1016 millibars. Did you see the Northern Lights last night? Absolutely amazing. We didn't see it here, but the photos I've seen, fantastic. Along the south coast, sister-in-law, she saw it, took photos. They're on the coast. We couldn't see it here because right outside our house to the north, there are street lights. And it's light pollution, isn't it? It just obliterates everything. Same with mother-in-law. She's along the coast. Her front window looks out onto street lights, so she couldn't see anything. Had we known that was going to happen, we would have driven up to the top of the Downs and had a look up there. Or when we were in the Isle of Wight, imagine if we'd been up the huge hill at Ventnor, we would have had a terrific view from there. Enough of Northern Lights. 4 degrees centigrade is 39 Fahrenheit, so not warm at all. The central heating came on 6 o'clock this morning, not good. The sunshine, look at that blue sky, wonderful. Where are we now? 7 o'clock. Blue sky. Sunshine coming up, lovely sunrise, fantastic. What's happening in America? I hope you're all keeping well down near Florida, in Florida. I'm keeping up with the news here on the telly and on the radio and online, of course. I've seen lots of videos. Dreadful situation in Florida. Was it 1 million or 2 million people, I believe, without power? Absolutely incredible. I've heard various things about it. Worst storm in 1,000 years, someone was saying. I don't know how it could be 1,000 years. I suppose it can do. Someone else said it's the worst storm in 100 years. Then I heard winds of up to 175 miles an hour. And then someone else said 80 miles an hour. This is typical of online info, isn't it? You don't know what's right, what's wrong. People pull figures out of the air and publish all sorts of rubbish. You never know what's going on. What I do is read everything, or as much as I can, and then evaluate from that a sort of picture, hopefully, which is about right. But some of the videos I've seen have been terrible. I just hope everyone's all right. Let me know how you're doing. Raise rants at protonmail.com. There was a programme on TV that we watched last night, The Great Flood of 1968. Now, in 1968, I was 17. I don't remember it at all. I remember the winter of 62, 63. But this flood down in Somerset, down the West Country, it was absolutely awful. A whole village basically got washed away. A reservoir dam burst in the end, and that brought down a load of debris with it, which smashed the little village bridge. All sorts of damage. In fact, one side of a house had completely disappeared. And the lady that was staying in, or lived in the house, she said that they were in the back bedroom and they didn't realise that the front of the house had gone. It was only, she said it was only when we came out of the back bedroom to go and have a look out of the front bedroom window, we realised we didn't have a front bedroom. It had gone. That's awful. Oh, some of the pictures were dreadful. And it just made me think of Florida, what's happening out there. Mother Nature. You don't argue with Mother Nature. If she wants to do something, she'll do it. And us little humans can't do a thing about it. There was one family, they drove over a bridge, a flooded bridge, and got stuck. And the car was washed away. They couldn't, the engine stopped, presumably. The lady, they never did find the lady, or I think they found the man. But the lady in the car, the chap's wife, they never did find her. Their daughter of 21, she died. Her fiancé, he survived. Of course, he was distraught. He'd lost his, I don't know, it's just all awful. They live, was it the Chew River, as in chewing gum? The Chew River. That's the one that overflowed. Then there's the Avon that goes into. It was a disaster after disaster. Whatever could go wrong did go wrong. There were massive torrents of water just gushing down this valley and just washing everything away. I was thinking this morning, I'm not going to complain about our weather. Oh, look, it's raining again. Oh, here we go. Pouring with rain. That's nothing, is it, in comparison? Dreadful. So I'm not going to complain about the weather. It's not raining at the moment. It's quite pleasant. But it does make me think. There's me moaning about the weather. Oh, not another day of rain. Oh, dear, everywhere's soaked. So it does put things into perspective, doesn't it? That flood down in Somerset, that Chew River, that was in July, middle of the summer. You just don't expect that. Well, we do. We expect rain during our typical British summer. It does rain, but you don't expect that amount of rain. Someone said, what was it, 1.5 meters of rain in 5 hours, was it, or 7 hours? That's a huge amount of rain. Absolutely massive amount. Of course, with a hurricane, you've also got the wind, haven't you? Not just the rain, the wind as well. Just dreadful to think about the whole thing. I just hope everyone's all right out there. Decades ago, we bought a bungalow. And before we'd actually bought it, we'd looked at it. It seemed nice. And someone said to me, that bungalow you're thinking of buying, that flooded a while ago. Of course, that rang alarm bells. It flooded. There was a stream not far from the bungalow at the front of the property, just up the road a bit. This chap said, yeah, that stream there, it overflows now and then. It has flooded the place. So I asked one of the neighbours, and he said, no, it didn't flood the bungalows. He said what it did, it overflowed. There was torrential rain, the stream overflowed, and there was a large puddle in the road. Nowhere near the bungalow. It was down the road, just a big puddle. And he added, since then they've dredged it so it doesn't happen again. So we bought the bungalow and moved in. But that just reminded me, thinking back to then, if you live in a valley, lovely surrounding woods, beautiful area, you've got the river not far from your front door, really nice. If we have torrential rain, your house down in that valley could be flooded or washed away even. As I said earlier, the documentary showed one house where the front of it had gone, just completely gone. Nothing there, no bricks, no wall, nothing. So what does that do to the value of the property? So you want to sell it. You've got a prospective buyer and he says, oh, this is nice, I like this. Has it ever flooded? What can you do? You can't say, oh, no, it's fine. Because he could find out, look at records and things. Yes, it's flooded 3 times. We've lost all our furniture and everything 3 times. Oh, OK, and you're asking how much for it? No, I don't think so. OK, thanks anyway, I'll leave it. You're not going to sell your house, are you? There was quite a knowledgeable chap on the TV I was watching the other day. He was talking about the trouble in Florida. And he said here in the UK, what's happened, we change the course of rivers. They meander, don't they? They snake this way and that way and this way and that way. If you look at a map, you can see how they curve and swerve all over the place. He said what we've done in certain places is straighten out the river. I don't know why they do that. Perhaps they want more land or something, but they straighten out the course of the river. And he said what that does increases the speed of the flow. It doesn't have to go around bends anymore. It can just go straight line. And he said another thing that happens is the trees up the sides of the valley, up the hills, take those away. What does that do? Well, first of all, the roots of the trees hold the earth together. Take the trees away and there'll be a landslide. Obviously, all those roots held it together. No roots anymore of trees, all gone. Rain washes down the hillside and all the mud and earth goes with it, so there's a landslide. Another thing he pointed out, trees take in carbon dioxide and give off oxygen. So that's another reason not to knock the trees down and do all these daft things in forests that people seem to be bent on doing. Oh, let's get rid of the entire forest. What a great idea. OK, right. I nearly said something then that I shouldn't. In Arundel, the River Arun, look it up on the map. Next to that, from the field, there's a big field. You can see the Arundel Castle there, lovely. There's this huge field. It's just left. There's no crops grown in it, no building on it. It's just a huge field. Why is it left? Because every now and then it's full of water. It looks like a lake. You drive down the hill, steep hill into Arundel, and you can see this field. And I've seen it many times. It's a lake. It's a floodplain. And it works. It's a floodplain. The river overflows on that bit and it floods the field. Excellent. Now, idiots, decades ago, I remember there was this land and they built a housing estate on it, not far from where we are. They built a housing estate. Oh, look, that's good. People moved in and it flooded. It's not funny. Well, it is funny. No, it's not funny, is it? It's stupidity in the extreme. Like the field in Arundel. Who in their right mind would build houses there? Mind you, a builder might think, I'll tell you what, I'll buy that field, drain it off a bit, build some houses, take the money and run. When they flood, well, it doesn't do it me. It weren't me, governor. I don't know. So we pull down trees, we straighten out rivers, we build on floodplains, We do all these dreadful things, and then people are saying, oh, why did it flood? Oh dear. What's that river between, is it Devon and Cornwall? I can't remember. There's not Tamar, something, I don't know. That I remember many years ago, decades ago, that flooded. It's a valley where the river goes down into the sea. There's a valley. And that river actually was featured on the Victorian Farm programme with Ruth Goodman, and the rest of them. That flooded. I must look on the map. Is it the Tame or Tay something? And there were houses there, cars, everything got washed away. I don't know why that happened. Perhaps sometimes it doesn't take us to intervene. It might be just too much rain. Perhaps we didn't cut all the trees down. Perhaps we didn't change the course of the river. It's just Mother Nature again deciding, well, I'm going to just wash out all that lot. Needs a bit of clearance and sends torrents of water down there. And it's not funny because it kills people. They not only lose their homes and their cars and everything they own, some people die. I suppose the moral of the story is, if you're going to buy a house, make sure it's up a hill somewhere and not down in a valley. Imagine you're down in a valley next to the river. This is nice. Ooh, this is lovely. Just up the hill a bit, there's a reservoir and a dam. If that dam breaks, the water is going to come flooding down the valley, end of house, possibly end of you. Do not buy houses. I shouldn't say that. I've just decreased the prices of property in valleys by 100%. No, seriously, whenever we've only moved a few times, we've looked at the house, the surrounding area, what problems are there. We bought a house many years ago. We moved, this is before we went to the village. We bought a house. The solicitor chap said, I've done the searches, as you do, and they're thinking of building a bridge over the railway line just there, not far from your house. And he said, don't worry about it though, because that was in 1939. They planned to build the bridge and it was all going to go ahead, but they ran out of money. He said, I can't see they're going to build a bridge now. That was 1939. We moved out, we went to the village, blah, blah, blah. What did they do? They built the bridge. I mean, it's okay. It's not anywhere near, well, it's near where we lived, but it didn't affect the house at all. But they did. They went ahead with the bridge. And of course, some of the houses are right next to the bridge. They've got this big wall of grass just at the back of their house. You remember I said earlier about stuff online, you don't know what to believe. Someone says this, someone else says that. Evaluate. What I do, as I said, take all the bits of information and out of the whole lot, I come to my own conclusion. Someone said to me a while ago, I mentioned some news item, I can't remember what it was, and someone said, oh, did you get that from GB News? And I said, no, it was BBC actually. BBC. Online I get news alerts from Sky News, BBC News, Reuters, GB News. I get news from it wherever I can. And of course some of them get it wrong, some are right, some is fake news, hoax news, all this rubbish. So I don't watch or listen to any particular news channel. I just take news from everywhere and, as I say, just go through it myself and work out what I think is right. In the old days, when I was a boy, back in the 50s and the 60s, I don't think anyone questioned the news. There was a BBC, that was it. And I don't think anyone ever said, oh, I bet that's fake news, I bet they're lying, I bet that's a hoax. I don't think anyone even thought, it didn't cross their mind, Is that true? Well, it's on the BBC. And the BBC were renowned, weren't they, world over, for giving you the straight truth, the news as it happens. No bias, no nothing. Now look what's happened these days. Was it biased back then, do you think? I was only a child in the 50s. In the 60s, when I was a teenager, I didn't really take much notice of the news. Well, as I said, I was 17 when they had the flood down in Somerset. I probably wasn't aware of it because I didn't watch the news. I didn't read newspapers. I've never read newspapers because they all contradict each other. Back then, the newspapers were the equivalent of the internet today. They all contradict each other. One's left-leaning, one's right-leaning. I don't know where you are half the time. As I say, just take snippets of news from everywhere and put it all together and evaluate the stuff for yourself. That's the best way. Or just don't watch the news at all. Just don't bother. My mum said that recently. She said, I don't watch the news anymore. It's depressing. She's 91, so I suppose she's beyond caring what happens. Although she has said, oh, I worry about the children. I worry about the grandchildren in the future. What are they going to do? And I've said to her, forget it. They'll have to sort it out, won't they? It's not your problem. I've just remembered this episode is supposed to be about the good old days. No, what was it? Good things in the good old days. We had a lot of good things back then. I know I've said many times that we didn't have all the technology, the phones, the computers and all this rubbish. Well, it's not rubbish, is it? It's good. I've heard people say many times, oh, the internet's dreadful. Oh, it's awful. All these dreadful things on all this pornography. Oh, it's dreadful. That's only a minute percentage of it, isn't it? The internet is fantastic. I use it every day. We all do. All the family use it every day. Okay, as I've said, it's no good trying to find out the news on the internet because it's just all rubbish and lies. Happy days. Stone the crows. I have never found out what that means, stone the crow. Why would you stone the crows? Do they eat the seed in the field or something? So the farmers stone them. I would have thought they'd blast them with a double-barreled 12-bore shotgun rather than chuck stones at them. I haven't put any pictures, photos of dreadful architecture on the website, rants.info. Get that plug in there. Because no one sent me any. Was it Joan? I haven't put yours on, Joan. No one sent me any. Perhaps you all love the architecture around where you live. Perhaps you're looking at these new builds. Isn't that an awful expression? New build. New houses or a new building, not a new build. Have you seen these adverts? Online or in store. You can't say in store. Come and buy our new blah, blah, blah in store. Well, what are you talking about in store? In a store, yes, in a shop. It's like saying, we're now selling these in shop. What? What are you talking about? How many of you are incorrect by saying something like, I would have thought he'd go to school. I would have thought the sun would come out as it's summer. Would of, it's would have. I would have thought he'd go to work today, not I would have thought. Stone the crows and the newsreaders on the telly. Hello, welcome to News Channel so-and-so with me, Fred and Jeanette. You don't say me and her or me and Fred went to the shops. No, Fred and I went. We won't have an English lesson. You'd all switch off if you haven't done so already. I don't know whether I've told you, I used to teach English as a foreign language to foreign students many years ago. It was good. I quite enjoyed that. We'd have French students come over and Spanish, all that sort of thing, and I'd learn them English like what I does. And this chap said to me, he heard that I was teaching English, and he said, well, you want to learn English yourself, don't you? And I thought, well, you can't even speak. It was dreadful. Actually, I mustn't be rude. He came from the West Country. He had a bit of a West Country accent. But it wasn't the accent so much. He just hadn't got a clue about English. And he's telling me that I should learn English. But anyway, right, what else can I moan about? Just going back to the BBC. I mean, I wasn't around in the war. You've heard of Pathé News. Apparently, there was quite a bit of propaganda there, not to the enemy, but more for the people in the UK, more for the British. They would say, oh, we've done this and we've done that. We didn't lose many troops. That was a great success, and it wasn't. Perhaps they didn't lie as such. Well, they probably did. I think they just hid certain things. How did the Battle of so-and-so go? Yeah, that went quite well, actually. They didn't say, well, actually, we lost 500 men. No, that went quite well. Yeah, it could have been better, but it went quite well, just to boost the morale of the British people. So I suppose even back then, not that I was around during the war years, but even back then there was this propaganda. Well, there was who's heard of Lord Haw-Haw? He got hanged. Is it hanged or hung? Hanged. There's me saying about English, telling you lot how to do English properly, and I'm saying it all wrong myself. Yeah, he got hung, didn't he? He got hung. Hanged, isn't it? He was hanged. One thing I've never got right since school days is I'm going to lay down. I'm going to lie down. He had a lay down. He had a lie down. I know you lay the table, but I cannot get that in my head. I've got a blockage. Perhaps I don't like lying down. Or is it laying down? I don't know. I have tried and tried again to get it right and remember what it should be. I don't know. I can't do it. Susan, or is it Suzanne, the lovely school teacher in Germany. You teach English, do you not? Can you help me? Did I have a lie-in this morning or did I have a lay-in? I hope you're well, Susan. I hope you're doing well with your teaching. It was all right for me teaching English to foreign students because they couldn't speak English, well, very little English. So, I learnt them proper. I didn't have to go in-depth English, all this past and present participles and all this stuff. They just wanted to learn verbs, pronouns, all this. Oh, pronouns. I wouldn't teach them pronouns these days. I'll probably get arrested. Basic grammar, things like that. They wanted to read and write English, of course, but more than that, they wanted to speak, have conversations in English rather than concentrate too much on writing and reading. I don't know why I'm banging on about that. It was good fun, though. I enjoyed that. Back to good things in the good old days again. The cars. I saw something online. You'll think I'm always online. I am. I'm always on Twitter. I don't like Facebook so much. I took that off my phone because they track me, apparently. Well, they all do, don't they? But on Twitter, there's this person, I don't know who he is or she. I follow them, and they're always putting up pictures of the old days, the 50s, the 60s. And it's fascinating. Some little video clips of London, Piccadilly Circus, and you see smoke players, cigarettes and Bovril, Wrigley's chewing gum all on the lights. Is it Piccadilly Circus? The red buses going round, all the people going over Westminster Bridge to work. They were happy days for a lot of people. Well, for most people, I think. And looking at the cars, all different colour cars. And in the 60s, all the people, all the chaps there with their, was it Afghan coats and whatever they wore, hippies like me. Then you get the mods on their scooters wearing their parkas, the rockers on their motorbikes. It was great. And whenever I see these video clips or photos of London or anywhere in Britain, it's just fantastic looking back. The good things about the good old days, colourful cars, colourful clothes. Everything looked, dare I say, really British or really English. Can I say that or will I get arrested? I've already mentioned pronouns. Can you imagine me wearing a pronoun badge? What would I write on it? No, I can't say that. That would be a laugh though, wouldn't it? Imagine if I had to work in a pub or an office meeting the public. I've got my pronoun badge on. I know what Tricia would write on it. Something else in the pictures I've seen online that you don't see today, the red phone boxes, red buses, red phone boxes, all the good old stuff. I like that. I know I'm old. I know I keep on banging on about the good old days, but they were good old days. I like the red phone boxes. Then we had those Mercury, was it the Mercury Phone Company? They stuck their awful stainless steel phone boxes all over the place and no one used them, so they took them away. Now we have no phone boxes. Actually, I do think we have one or two here and there. I'm sure there are one or two phone boxes around. But in the good old days, they were on, well, virtually on every street corner there was a phone box. Keep your emails coming. raiserants@protonmail.com. Be good to hear from you. Check out the website, raiserants.info. I would add some more stuff to the website. I'm just not sure what. I don't want to flood it with pictures of the Isle of Wight. You'll be thinking, oh, look, here we go again, not more pictures of the Isle of Wight. We had that last year and the year before and the year before that. But I will add some more pictures when I have something of interest or what I hope will be of interest to you. I've got some photographs of a 1940s military receiver that I've just restored and a power supply I've built, but I just get the idea you don't want to see that on the website, do you? I think I'm right, you don't want to see that. I said to Tricia the other day, she came in here, and I said, do you want to see my power supply I've just built? No. I said, no, come and have a look, take an interest. And she looked and said, yes, very good, and walked out. So it's not interesting to people, is it? My homemade power supply for my receiver is just not a point of interest. I've said to her sister in the past, I said, come and have a look at this. And she sort of looks at me and eyes to the ceiling. I said to her, look, take an interest. And she just says, I'm not interested. Happy days. I mentioned my Lister, my 1938 Lister engine that I've restored. I mentioned that to a chap a few weeks back. And he said, which model is it? I told him. And, he went on and on. He said, I've got one. I've got a Lister this. I've got a D. I've got a so-and-so engine. I've got this engine. And he wouldn't stop. He was going on and on. I thought, stone that croat. I wish I'd never mentioned it. On and on about all these engines. I didn't realise that he had a collection of engines. I just mentioned that I've got this engine. And I wish I hadn't. I think it's best to keep quiet. Not say anything. Don't tell people. Have you got an engine? No. I've got an engine. No. When we go to Amberley Museum and the radio chaps are there manning the radio station, amateurs talking to people, I say to Trish, don't tell them that I'm a radio amateur. Don't tell them I've got a licence, because they'll go on and on. And sometimes she has in the past, we've been standing there, she says in a loud voice, "Oh, you do Morse code, don't you, Ray? You're licensed, aren't you?" Then she walks off and pretends to look at something and leaves me to chat to these blokes. "Oh, you're an amateur. What's your call sign?" "Oh, excellent. Come and look at the gear." "Oh, for goodness, I don't look at the gear." Wherever we've been, perhaps on a holiday somewhere, and there's a museum with some military radio gear or something, she threatens that she'll say out loud, "You're a radio amateur, you know about this stuff." And of course, if a volunteer hears that, they home in on me, and that's it. The next 20 minutes, half an hour, I get ear bashing from some volunteer about radios. We were up at the Bluebell Railway once, Trisha's dad and a few other people. And one of the lads, there was a group of people there all milling around looking at this huge steam engine. And this friend of ours, he said to Trisha's dad, he said, "You used to drive the steam engines, didn't you?" And of course with that, everyone crowded round him. We all cleared off and left him with this crowd of people all asking him questions. He didn't mind actually, he was quite happy to talk about the old days of steam. But that's the sort of thing that Trisha threatens to do to me wherever we go. Do you know, it's a beautiful afternoon. I think it's about 15 degrees out there now. 4 degrees this morning, now 15. Blue sky, the flag's hardly moving again. Is this an Indian summer? That's another thing I've never understood. Why is it an Indian summer? You know, why is it an Australian summer or an American summer? For those of you that have asked again, no, Gary's not hibernating yet. The tortoise, we're trying to keep him out and about as long as possible. When I was a boy, we had 2 tortoises. Is it tortoises or tortoise? Whatever, we had 2 of them. And every winter we put them in a big tea chest full of straw. We put the 2 of them in there and put that in the shed. And they survived a few winters. One winter they didn't. It was particularly cold and they just basically froze to death. They're meant to be hibernating between 5 and 7 degrees centigrade. And of course in a shed you can get a nice warm day in the winter. The sun comes out, the shed can warm up. Perhaps 10, 12 degrees in there, which is far too warm. They start to wake up. Do they wake up or dehibernate? Sometimes at night it can go below freezing in the shed, perhaps -2, something like that. So they've got this huge change in temperature going on and they freeze to death. They either get too warm and wake up or they get too cold and die. Of course, back then everyone had tortoises. No one had a clue about hibernation. They used to feed them salad stuff, just chuck out salad, tomatoes, lettuce all over the lawn. That wasn't good for them. It's too wet. It mucks up their metabolism and their digestive business. But yes, for those of you who have asked, he's still out and about. In fact, he's in the garden now, roaming around, eating weeds, having a look round, enjoying the sunshine. I shall let you know when he goes into hibernation. Hello, Leon. Nice to hear from you. You know, I was talking about architecture and buildings and all this stuff. Leon has contacted me to say what is really nice is when you get a building covered in ivy. We've got Boston ivy down the garden growing all over the pergola, or do you call it a pergola or something? And that's a coffee percolator, isn't it? Anyway, there's this Boston ivy, and this time of year the leaves are all red. They look really autumnally. Can you say autumnally? Well, I just have, so that'll do. And you're right, Leon. There are some buildings around here on the outskirts of the town. They've got ivy all over them. I know it's not good for the brickwork. It's not good for the masonry stuff at all. But doesn't it look lovely? All cut out around the windows. It looks really nice. I agree entirely with that, Leon. Who else has contacted me? Reg. Hello, Reg. Nice to hear from you. He says, I was talking a while ago about hobbies, not having hobbies when you're retired. I do remember that vaguely, Reg. Yeah, I forget what I said about it. Oh, no, I don't. I remember. That's right, people getting bored. So you've worked all your life, you've come up to your retirement age, and you sit in the armchair, looking out of the window. You've got no hobbies, nothing to do. You don't go fishing, you don't do this, you don't do that. And Reg is saying that he's got a friend that hasn't got any hobbies. Reg's hobby is fishing, as it happens. He's always out fishing. Come rain or shine, he's always out fishing. Well, why not? But a friend of his, no hobbies at all. I do remember talking about this. And his friend is bored. He's bored with retirement. Apparently he's been retired for a year and he's thinking of going back to work because all he does is sit there every day wondering what to do. Obviously a few jobs around the house and garden to do, but he's not into gardening. He's not into do-it-yourself stuff around the house. He just sits there every day bored. I know I've known people like that, Reg. It must be awful for them. I've known several people over the years. They don't have a hobby. They have a week or two off work and they don't know what to do. They've got to take their holiday, their 2 weeks or whatever it is each year, and they just don't know what to do. I remember a chap years ago, he was a lot older than me, he was retired, and he was always so bored. I don't know what to do. Oh no, I've got next week off. What am I going to do all week? Strange, isn't it? Trisha and I just haven't got enough time in the day for all the things that we want to do. I like talking to you on the podcast twice a week. That takes up a lot of time. I've got my amateur radio hobby. We're both into gardening. Trish is into cooking. That's her hobby, which is nice because my hobby is eating. No, seriously. We haven't got enough time in the day. There's always so much we have to do and so much we want to do. We've only been to Amberley this year. Was it twice, I think, or 3 times? Normally we'll go perhaps 7 or 8 times, or try to. But this year we've just been so busy with everything. Next weekend we have a wedding to go to. That'll be nice. That's next Saturday, I think it is. We haven't been up to Pulborough Brooks. We went up there once, Pulborough Brooks. We joined. We had a look round. This is lovely, we were saying. This is really nice. It's only up the road. And that was the only time we've been. We haven't been back. We keep saying we must go to Pulborough Brooks. We paid, we've joined up, we don't go there. Haven't been to Amberley much. I want to go over to Shoreham. There's a fort, no, not a fort. There's something at Shoreham I want to see. There's Newhaven Fort. I want to go and see that. I don't know what it is. We just don't have any spare time. I think also with family and grandchildren, all this sort of stuff going on, there just isn't time. I wanted to creosote the fences this summer. I haven't done that. I bought a huge, a 25 litre or something thing of creosote, well, pretend creosote. £60. Stone the crows, 60 quid. What a rip-off. Anyway, it's brand new in the shed. I haven't used it. I've got to prune the cherry tree. Well, I won't go through a list of what I've got to do. We'll be here all day. Sun's coming out again, which is nice. Little breeze from the west. So I really don't understand how anyone could be bored when they're retired. There's just so much to do. I remember talking about retirement years ago. We'd wake up in the morning. We'd be chatting about it, what it must be like to wake up in the morning any day of the week and you haven't got to go to work. We'd sit up in bed, have a cup of tea and say, well, what should we do today? Should we go over to Shoreham Airport for breakfast, or let's pop over to Amberley? We had this idea of retirement which was completely wrong. Happy days. I remember old people retiring when I was young, in my early teens. I remember old people saying, oh, I'm retired now. They were different then. Old people back then, in the 50s, the 60s, they were old. Old people now aren't so old. Does that make sense? Not really. I think I've mentioned before this old neighbour of ours when I was about 10 or 12. He said to me, I'm 70 years and 10, which is 70, of course. Well, I'm 73, and he looked like he was sort of 110, and he acted like he was 110. He'd shuffle up and down his garden path, hands behind his back. He was just like a very old man, and he was only, 70 years old. Perhaps because I was about 12, he seemed really... I mean, when I was 12, someone of 20-something was really old to me. But I remember him shuffling around in his garden, and he was always telling me how old he was and he couldn't do things. People of that age, they acted, I think, older than they actually were. I remember my grandmother, she said to me once, when I was about 12 years old or something, she said, this washing I have to do for the 2 of us every week, it's quite a strain on me, I'm getting older. Then she said to me, I'm 40 now, 40? Old? What's she talking about? Truth. 40 years old. And she acted, I remember she acted sort of 80 years old. I don't know what it is. It's just back then. It doesn't happen these days. Also, if you look at photographs of people back then, say aunties, uncles, mum and dad or whatever, when they're in their 20s, they looked like they were 40-something or even older. The way their hair, the way they dressed, their shoes. I don't know, they just look really old. They're only in their 20s. Whereas these days, people not look younger so much, but I suppose they act a lot younger than they really are, like me. People say to me, when are you going to grow up? I just say, well, I'm not. I don't want to be grown up and miserable. Miserable. Not all old people are miserable, of course. Actually, I do know a chap, he's about 5 years younger than me, and he thinks or acts, or I think he must believe that he's a lot older. You'd think he was a really old man. He mopes about, shuffles around, grumbling about things. Oh, don't like this, don't like that. He never goes anywhere. He won't go to the pub. He's just miserable. He doesn't work. He retired, I think, when he was 60-something, about 60. Yeah, he's 5 years younger than me. And he just acts like an old man. He's retired. He doesn't know what to do. He shuffles around, moaning and complaining, a bit like me, really. No, I don't do that. But it must be horrible for him to be like that. I don't know why I'm laughing. It's just funny. I'm just picturing him. We went to the pub once, a couple of years ago. We went to the pub, him and his wife and Tricia, and we all went there. He was sitting there miserable, moaning about this, moaning about that. And I thought, why are you here? Why don't you just go home? You'd probably be happier at home. He's a lovely chap, really nice, a good friend of mine. It's just that he's so miserable and boring. Talking of boring, this chap I know, he really is the epitome of boredom, honestly. Whenever I see him, I've been to the doctor again. I've got to go. I've got a hospital appointment next week. Oh, what's that about, Fred? That's not his real name. You guessed that, didn't you? What's that about then, Fred, I would say. Oh, it's my knee, and then I've got to go about I've got this trouble with my elbow, then my shoulder on the other side. The doctor sent me for this, and then I had to go there, and the consultant said this. I'm on all these pills. Whenever I see him, all I hear about are his medical and health problems and the doctor, the hospital. I had a scan, I had an x-ray. They're now doing this, they're doing that. I've had blood tests. Honestly, it's like meeting Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. You remember Eeyore the donkey? Always miserable. I'm depressed, I'm miserable and depressed. Crikey, we've got a news alert now. Some of you don't like news alerts, do you? P&O Ferries owner will attend UK Investment Summit. Oh, I can't be bothered with all that. Do you like Winnie the Pooh? I like Winnie the Pooh. There's another news flash. Christopher Robin, Piglet. I saw a cartoon a little while ago. There was Christopher Robin sitting down, leaning against a tree, eating a sandwich. And Piglet wasn't with him. There's a bonfire, I think, in front of him. And he says, "You were a good friend, Piglet, but I do like bacon sandwiches," something like that. He'd eaten Piglet. I found that funny. Black clouds coming over, the wind's getting up. Here we go. I wasn't going to moan about the weather, was I? Stone the crows, I forgot. I said I wasn't going to moan about the weather because of all the weather in Florida and other places around the world. A little bit of rain here is nothing, is it, in comparison? So I won't talk about the weather. Now, again, I must remind myself this episode is about good things in the good old days. I tend to ramble. Have you noticed that? Of course you've noticed that. I tend to go off on tangents. It's like word association, isn't it? I'm talking about perhaps old people. That reminds me of a neighbour, so I go on to that. That then gets me on to another subject, say gardening, because a neighbour couldn't do the garden and he moaned. So I lurched from one subject to another. And you're probably thinking, what is he on about now? The clocks change soon. I remember when I was young, the clocks changed. I don't know whether that started. Was it in the war? I believe it was the First World War. Clocks changed to get more daylight, wasn't it? British summertime they brought in, which is lovely when they spring forward at the beginning of the year because you get that extra hour in bed. Not that I need an extra hour in bed. I'm up at 4:30. But of course, this time of year when they fall back, as in autumn back, it's a good way to remember it, isn't it? Spring forward in the springtime, fall as in autumn back in the autumn time. And it's the end of this month, isn't it? Do you have changing clocks where you are? Do you change time? You do in America, don't you, I believe? Some parts of Europe, I believe, also change their clocks. It's all very confusing. Mind you, life is confusing to me. So that's the end of this month, and it will be then a lot darker, not just in the evenings, late afternoon. It has been, when you get bad weather here, when it's a really dull day, heavy clouds, 4:00 in the afternoon, it's dark, just about dark in the winter time, which is awful. Then, of course, you wake up, people go off to work in the dark. It seems to be permanently dark. So we've got that to look forward to. We went to our club last night. I did say I'd never go there again because of the noise. But we went last night. There was a band there. Really old boys they were. Old boy. The drummer was old. When I say old, older than me, I think. Bass guitarist, the lead guitar, the singer. The singer wasn't too old. But they played all the 50s and 60s stuff, some of which I like. Not all of it, but they were very good, actually. We didn't stay till the end. Do you know, there were hardly any people there. I was embarrassed for them. Hardly any people there at all. I don't know where everyone's gone. And when they took their break, they had a sort of half time. We went home. We went home because we've got a lot to do. Today, we were up early in the morning today, around my mother's, doing housework and all this stuff. So we didn't want a late night. But that was very good. I'm glad I went. And it wasn't too loud. They weren't lifting the roof with noise, like some of these live bands do. We could actually chat and listen to the band, which is just right for me. As I was saying, I remember when I was young, the clocks changing in the winter. We'd head off to school in the dark. And then we'd leave school, I think it was about 4 o'clock, 3:45 we'd leave school. And of course it was getting dark again. So that wasn't much fun. Just had an email just this second from Catherine. Hello, Catherine. Nice to hear from you. She says, in the old days, we didn't have to hang on the phone for hours listening to Greensleeves, a dreadful version of Greensleeves, while we waited for a call centre person to actually take the call. She said, I've just been on the phone for an hour and a half. Hour and a half. Crikey, that's a long time. I won't mention who it is she's phoning, but she was phoning this company to find out about something. And you got the music playing, saying, your call is important, please hold on. Now this is just, who was it said that to me the other day? It was Joan. Hello, Joan, if you're listening. You were saying exactly the same thing. If your call is important to us, then why aren't you answering the phone? Hour and a half. We have, Trish and I, we've both experienced this. We've been on the phone for half an hour, 3/4 of an hour. But an hour and a half, I wonder whether they're trying to make you go away, give up and go away. Do they actually have people that answer the phone? I wonder that, Catherine. Perhaps they think, oh, well, look, if we make them hold on for long enough, eventually they'll go away. After perhaps 2 hours, 3 hours, half a day, they'll clear off. These call centres really ought to sort themselves out. When you have to wait an hour and a half, for your call to be taken. And what has happened many times over the years, you eventually get through and you say, right, my problem is blah, blah, blah. Oh, yes, wrong department. Call this number. What? And they hang up. You call this other number. Your call is important to us. Please hold on. Oh, no, not Greensleeves again. Actually, it's not Greensleeves these days, is it? It's something else they play. I quite like Greensleeves, actually. Funnily enough, I was listening to Marianne Faithfull's version of Greensleeves only a couple of days ago. I rather like that. I rather like Marianne Faithfull. When I was a teenager, I had a picture of her on my bedroom wall. Anyway, enough said about that. You're right, Catherine, reading the rest of your email. We didn't have that in the old days. I remember when we first got married, I'd phone, say, the telephone company or whoever it was, and you get through more or less straight away. Sometimes you might have to hang on for a second or two, but they put you through. And if it was the wrong number, if they said, no, you've come through to the wrong department, hang on, I'll put you through to the right department. Click, click, click. Hello, this is the right department. How can I help you? It was good. It was great. What's happened is the usual old thing I bang on about. Too many people, too many cars, so things don't work. In fact, I think that is the problem with just about everything. The cars, the roads, the traffic, the potholes, too many cars on the roads. And there are too many cars on the roads because there are too many people. We're a small island here and there are millions of people here. There's just not enough room. We don't have enough doctors' surgeries, enough hospitals, enough schools. What is going to happen as the years go by? It's all right building new housing estates. Oh, look what we've done. Built a lovely housing estate, not on a floodplain, not near a river. It's on high ground, so it won't flood. Look at that. Aren't we good? Well, yes, you're very good building the houses, but there's no doctor's surgery nearby. There's no school nearby. People are going to have to travel miles to go to school. Oh, yeah, we didn't think of that. Actually, there is a law of some sort, or law, regulation, whatever they call it. If you build more than 500 houses, is it? Trish is always banging on about this. More than 500 houses, then you have to have a local doctor, a local school and all that stuff. You've got to build all that as well. So what do? They'll build 499 houses so they don't have to get the school built as well and all the rest of the infrastructure, which is crazy. It's all very well building new housing estates everywhere. If there is a doctor's surgery nearby, then they're going to be flooded with more patients. Someone was telling me recently that a doctor's surgery closed down for some reason. I don't know, it went broke or whatever they do. So another doctor's surgery, some distance away, had to take on their patients, which is fine, you'd expect that. But they had to take on an extra 17,000 patients. And of course they couldn't cope. They'd already got their own patients, thousands of their own. They're then taking on another 17,000 people. And they just can't cope. As far as I'm aware, it's still up and running, but it must be horrendous. It's not my area, it's some distance away. But it must be horrendous. Our local surgery, they're excellent. They're really good. Yes, we have to wait for an appointment sometimes, but that's not too bad. But some of the things you hear about other doctors' surgeries, it's just awful. When you think about it, it is true, really, that a lot of the problems are caused simply by too many people. Not enough schools because there are too many people. Too many cars on the road. Well, there are too many people. Not enough houses. Not enough doctors' surgeries. Not enough hospitals. Everything because there are too many people. Now, going back to the good old days when I was a boy, obviously there were millions less people and things worked. You could walk into your local doctor's surgery. I remember that. Don't make an appointment. You just walk in. Give your name and address. What's the trouble? Yep. Okay, sit down. And you sit down with the rest of the people there. You've got your turn, comes up. These days you phone them, well, if you can get through, they'll say, yeah, okay, well, we've got nothing. Where are we now? We're in October. We've got nothing actually till December. Is that all right? Well, not really. I'll probably be dead by then. I don't know. It's a funny old world, isn't it? Talking of the number of cars on the road, our garage, we go every year. We've got a local garage, MOT and service. I phone them and the first thing they say is, have you been with us before? Are you a regular customer? Yes, give them the name and address. Oh, yes, we can see you are. Yep, that's fine. If you're not a regular customer, I was up there once and I said to the chap, what happens if you're not a regular? We won't take you on, he said. We're overworked as it is. We can't fit anyone else in. And that's a small local garage to me. Now, normally you'd think they'd be happy. Well, the more customers we can get, the better, the more money we make. They're overrun with work. They just can't take on any more customers. Fortunately, we've been with them a number of years and they will fit us in. We come first, obviously, over new customers. So what does that show us? Again, too many people, too many cars. I've heard the same thing about your local dentist. Won't take on any more patients. They've got enough. They just can't cope with any more. Anyway, on that note, have I depressed you enough? Or do you want some more? How about another hour of moaning and groaning and depression and doom and gloom and the winter's coming? No, it's not coming for you lot down under, is it? Got your summer coming. It's all right for you. It won't be long. Payback time won't be long. I'll be saying it's springtime here. You've got your winter to look forward to. Mind you, your winter's better than our summer. Happy days. Be good. You know what I'm going to say, don't you? Be bad. And if you are bad, don't get caught. Now, don't do anything really bad. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy. That's the top of the list. Healthy, happy, safe. Where does safe come down that list? Anyway, whatever. Lovely to chat to you. Always enjoy your company, as you know. Hope you've enjoyed listening to me ranting and moaning. I am now going to polish my wooden box. I built a power supply. I stained it yesterday with wood stain, and I'm going to put some wax polish on it. That'll keep me out of Trisha's way for a while. I shall see you on Wednesday. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye-bye for now.